Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Shane Walsh. I'm the Club Growth Director, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Tom Goodwin, Distinguished Toastmaster and immediate past District Director. For District 45, Tom and I go a ways back, many years back, good friends, and he is going to take us through the club sponsor and mentor training webinar this evening. It's all yours, Tom.
Okay, thank you, Shane. The purpose of the webinar today is to talk about club building and review steps of club building. We will learn the roles and responsibilities of club sponsors and club mentors and understand the benefits to both the club, the members, sponsors, mentors, and the district from the activities of the sponsors and mentors in building new clubs. The topics that I've broken this down into, as I call it, Club Building 101. We'll go through all the particulars involved in organizing, running demo meetings, and getting the club up to charter strength. We'll go through some basic reasons why it's important that we have members who are looking to become sponsors and mentors, the duties of the club sponsor and the duties of the club mentors. Then we'll quickly review how the appointments are actually made and how the sponsors and mentors receive credit for the work that they do. And we'll finish off at the end and have a question and answer period. So, Club Building 101. We start with the club building team. And this involves the sponsors and the mentors, as well as the district leaders from the district director, the club growth director, the club extension chair, division, and area directors. All of these people may or may not play a part in the development of a new club. And then there's the sponsoring club. And the duties of a sponsoring club are rather vague. But there is one important area where, at least in the United States, that it might be important to have a sponsoring club, and we'll cover that in a little bit. At this point, do we have any questions at this point, Jeff, or should I just move on?
No questions, but you could ask. Actually, it's kind of fun to ask a simple true or false question for the club or for the participants and let them answer. I'll give you an example. A club sponsor does everything, pays all the dues, does all the recruiting, and does everything required in order for a club to be chartered. True or false? Okay, so this is your cue, everyone. Type in T or F in the little chat box. Shane says true. Rhonda says false. Shane corrected himself and recognized his great mistake and said false. So does Phil and Iris. They say false. Okay, so it seems like everyone here has passed.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to maybe point out a subtle distinction, or not so subtle distinction, between club sponsors and club mentors. As we'll see in the duties, the club sponsor is someone who is responsible for helping build the club up and run meetings and get it up to charter strength. And the club mentor is to step in when the club charters and carry it through its first 6 months. And I'm going to step out of the slides here for a second and come over to the Toastmasters website. And I think it's important that we look at the district mission. The district mission from Toastmasters is that the district builds new clubs and helps all clubs achieve excellence. And the distinction is that the club sponsor kind of handles the first half of that mission, the We Build Clubs. They build it up to charter strength and get the paperwork going, collect the dues, and get it all into Toastmasters. The mentors really have a responsibility in the second half of the district mission to support all clubs to achieving excellence. The purpose that I see of the mentor is to put the new club on the right track towards achieving excellence. And we'll go through that in a little further detail. And I'll jump back in here to the slideshow. So let's talk a little bit about the development timeline. So it all starts with a club lead that comes in either to a local Toastmaster or through the Toastmasters website to the district leaders. But there's a person to be contacted that we reach out to. And we start having discussions either face-to-face or over the phone or through email, organizing when and where to hold a demonstration meeting to show the local people in the community what Toastmasters is all about. And I'm going to use the term community, but in the case of a corporate club, the community is the corporation or company that the employees work for. So during the organizational phase, leading up to the demonstration meeting, there's some promotion that has to go on. We have to let the people in the community know that the meeting is happening and to generate some interest in it. The next step is to hold the kickoff meeting. At this point, you need probably 3, 4, 5 experienced Toastmasters to help organize and present what Toastmasters is all about to this new group of potential members. After the kickoff meeting and you've generated interest from the attendees, it's important to begin conducting regular meetings, weekly, bi-weekly, but we've built up some momentum. We don't want to let it lag. We want to get into a regular rhythm of holding meetings. Again, promotion and letting people know that the meetings are happening. As we begin to get into these regular meetings, the new prospective members start taking over speaking roles, table topics, the counters, the timers. It's important that we get them to understand what all the roles in the meeting are all about. And the club builds up, keeps gathering members, and it could take anywhere from 2 meetings to, I've seen it as long as 18 months. In the case of one club, it was even a lot longer than that before it reached charter strength. But you're building the club up. As long as it's making progress, keep holding meetings until you achieve the charter strength. So that's the development timeline. Under other considerations, there's the financing of a new club. In addition to collecting dues and money for new member kits, there's also dues or money that has to be collected for the charter fee. In the US, that's $125. In Canada, that would convert to, what is it, Shane, now? About $2,000 to $3,000?
Yeah, about that. We're having a good day, so it's only about 1,500.
I mentioned the sponsoring club, and this is the financing of a new club. This is the point where having a club as a sponsor to the new club can become valuable, because in the United States, a nonprofit organization such as the Toastmasters Club cannot open a bank account until they have that nonprofit tax ID number. And that is something that Toastmasters International applies for when the club charters. And it takes usually 4 to 6 weeks for it to be published back under the club information on the TI website. So all the time that the club is building towards charter strength, and for that 4 to 6 week period after chartering, the finances cannot be held in a club, in that club's bank account, because they haven't opened a bank account yet. That the sponsoring club has a bank account that's open and is a good spot to facilitate the collection of the dues, the depositing of the checks, the issuing of the check, or using the club's debit card to pay the charter fees to Toastmasters International. So this is the one area that I've seen having a sponsoring club being very important in conducting business for the new club.
Shane says,
another consideration.
Hold on.
Okay.
Shane says that it's slightly easier in Canada. So Shane, you want to unmute yourself and explain how it's easier in Canada, or the rules are different in Canada?
Well, in Canada, the Canada Revenue Agency, which is your IRS, our IRS, we don't need tax numbers, etc. We can just open up a club. We can open up a club bank account.
Okay.
So it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, in the United States, they require that tax ID number. Otherwise, there's no way for the bank account to get hacked and for someone else to get into it. That's a joke.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tom.
The next thing I wanted to touch on is membership limitations. When you're starting a new club, if it's a community club or a corporate club, anything other than an advanced club, you can only have so many current Toastmaster members in it. Out of the 20 charter members, 17 of them have to be new members or reinstating a previous membership that has lapsed. You can only have 3 members who are currently holding membership in another club. So that's the main limitation there. A lot of times I've seen clubs get to charter strength of 20, but 5 of the members are holding a membership in another club. Well, that means they're still too short of reaching charter strength. When they charter, they'll have 22 charter members, but they haven't met the requirements until they have 17 new members. The promoting of Toastmasters, the public relations, and getting the word out physically in print media, posting on physical bulletin boards at libraries or corporate bulletin boards if it's a corporate club. Getting Toastmasters out in front of people, in front of their eyeballs, is a very important part to building the new club. And the physical element is getting articles in newspapers getting flyers up. There's also an electronic element. You can create a Facebook page for the new club. It doesn't have to be an official club yet. A website, as soon as you pay the chartering fee, that initial $125, and get the charter kit, Toastmasters will assign the club number at that point. And with the club number, you can now go to Free Toast Hosts and develop a website for the club, and then link it to your Facebook page or any other social media page that you have. So promoting Toastmasters and getting the club up to charter strength takes a lot of public relations out there, both physically and electronically, to let everyone know that you do exist, and then have the new members, I guess, follow or like or friend the page on Facebook, and then their friends will see it, and it kind of builds up a community of itself. And the last consideration is, as the club starts to develop, the sponsors and mentors should be looking for who among the new members are the likely candidates for the club officer roles. And one of the things that I'd like to caution about is that club building is not a one-person effort. Some of the problems I've seen with clubs that have chartered is that they have one strong member who wants everything done their way. They're usually have some Toastmasters experience from the past, and they're looking to build a Toastmasters club in their image. And it's important that you pull other people in, and that you make sure that it's a collaborative effort among a number of people. Because if one person is running the show, there's a lot of chances for them to alienate other people, where if it's a collaborative effort, everyone coming has different needs that they're looking to meet, and it's easier to recognize that the club is going to meet your needs as a new member when it's obviously the efforts of a number of people, and it's not one person running the show. So that's one of the pitfalls that I would say sponsors and mentors have to look out for. So that's basically the club building, the timeline, some of the considerations. At this point, Jeff, do we have any questions?
There's a little bit
before
of...
I move on.
Nope, no real questions. There's
Okay.
a little bit of lively chat about setting up Facebook pages for clubs that have not chartered yet. But since Facebook is not a Toastmasters organization, it seems to me that anyone can create any page anytime they want for any purpose.
Yeah.
Unless Toastmasters sends them a decent cease and desist for improperly using the logos.
Yeah. Okay. Briefly, I'll move on to a couple of the key points on why someone should become a sponsor or a mentor. It's a way of giving back to Toastmasters. It's a way of sharing what you've experienced in Toastmasters with other people who may have a similar need. Share the benefits of Toastmasters. Working with a new club and a new group of people is also a new learning experience for both the club and for the sponsors and mentors. And, probably the main reason that people initially look at sponsors and mentorship is the credit you receive towards your Distinguished Toastmaster Award. And the way you receive credit for being a sponsor or a mentor is different under the current education program and under the upcoming Pathways program. At this point, under the current education program, club coaches with existing clubs and club sponsors and mentors with new clubs, all of them are considered equal. You're required to achieve one of those roles in order to qualify for Distinguished Toastmaster, actually for Advanced Leader Silver, which is a requirement for your DTM. Under Pathways, sponsors and mentors have been broken into two different groups. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the district mission statement. There's now going to be two separate requirements towards Distinguished Toastmaster. One of them is you have to be a club mentor or a club coach to rebuild an existing club. And that requirement relates to that helping clubs achieve excellence that I was talking about. The club sponsor is going to be given credit alongside Speechcraft coordinators and youth leadership program coordinators. And you have to fill one of those roles in order to be a Distinguished Toastmaster. So,
hey Tom,
being a sponsor and a mentor will mean different things under Pathways.
Tom?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I would say it sounds to me like they still mean the same thing. The roles are the same, but the way you get credit for them is a little different.
Yes.
Yeah, Ann Bissonette has a question about that specifically. She says that through Facebook and other places, Toastmasters are suggesting that sponsors should stay on and be a mentor in order to get both of those credits. Does that make sense to you? What do you think about that?
There may be instances where that makes sense. Now you're putting a lot of work on club building on potentially 2 people instead of 4. Typically, although the mentors officially, we'll see when we get into roles, the mentors don't officially start their service and their duty until the club charters. They're usually involved with the initial development of the club. And I think it's a lot easier to have 4 experienced Toastmasters helping to build the club rather than to rely on the efforts of 2. And again, this kind of gets back to my warning that club building shouldn't be a one-man show. And if possible, it should also include sponsors and mentors from different clubs, from more than one club. And I'll talk about that a little bit more when we go into the next step, into the duties of the 2 positions. In the sponsors' duties, the sponsors help organize the new club. They take it from the initial lead and help with the demonstration meetings, help conduct regular meetings leading up to charter strength. They help complete the charter paperwork. And their terms of service begins with the demonstration meeting, and their duties are done when the club charters. I say officially because, there's a certain level of ownership in developing new clubs. And usually sponsors will continue to, be part of the club, check in on it, even if they're not officially members of the club. They will continue helping out with the club, and they have a vested interest in making sure that it succeeds. But they're officially, they receive credit when the club charters. And then I list under core competencies, they need to understand the meeting role, because they're going to help manage the meetings as they build up to charter strength and teach these new prospective members what the various meeting roles are, so that they can take over the running of the meetings as they get closer and closer to charter strength. And they need to understand all the charter paperwork that's out there. And there's, I think, 6 different forms that are involved in chartering the club, from the initial application to organize, to listing the new club officers, to all the different membership applications, to how the club wants to identify itself, the name of the club, when they're going to meet, all that kind of information that goes up on the TI website. And then there's the constitution and bylaws of the club. So there's a number of different forms that have to be signed off by the new club president and the club secretary, and the payments that go in. And the sponsors need to understand all the charter paperwork and what can be sent in ahead of time and what needs to be sent in to complete the chartering process. On the other hand, I think the mentors have to be more experienced Toastmasters, because they're going to be with the club for 6 months after chartering. And they're there to share their knowledge and provide insight. And this is where I think it's important that mentors and sponsors come from more than just one other club, because you're not trying to build a club exactly like the club that you're coming from. You have to understand and have experienced a number of different clubs and how they function, so that you can understand what the commonality is between the clubs and what the uniqueness is among the clubs. Because each club needs to develop their own club culture. No 2 clubs run their meetings exactly the same. Every club develops their own culture. And as we heard on the club coaches call earlier, when clubs start to struggle, sometimes the club culture can actually be a little bit of a hindrance. And this is a point where, if the mentors help the club get on the right track to begin with, you might be able to alleviate some problems that'll happen down the road, and the clubs won't get into that situation where they're struggling. For the mentors, their terms of service starts officially when the club charters, and it ends 6 months after the club charters. So they are to mentor. With 2 mentors, it's not like every mentor has to be at every club meeting for those 6 months. But I would say that it's advisable for each mentor to be at least 1 club meeting a month, and at least one of the mentors to be attending the club officer meetings during that 6-month period. Because where the club sponsors are teaching the club roles, the meeting roles to the prospective members, now that the club is chartered, a lot of the mentoring efforts comes in teaching the officer roles to the new club. How how each officer should conduct their duties and how they all interrelate in the success of the club. So the core competencies are understanding the club officer roles, especially membership building techniques. When you build a new club, there's a lot of public relations and membership building that goes on to get to that charter strength of 20. It's important that they don't drop off and stop membership building when you get to 20, because life happens and no one is a Toastmaster member for life. The average length of membership is about 18 months, which means that for a club of 20, there's about 8-member turnover every year. So you have to continually be doing your membership building duties in order to attract new members to replace the ones that we know will leave. You know, it's just important, and the mentors should also understand the moments of truth, those 6 key factors that help the success of a club, from the way they treat their guests to the way they bring new members up to speed, the fellowship, the recognition of accomplishments, all those key activities that help make sure that members are achieving their goals and that there is a reason for them to keep coming back to the meetings. And these are the kind of values that the mentor instills in the club. Under Members of Truth, Moments of Truth, the mentor should also have a firm understanding of the Distinguished Club Program, those 10 goals that we have as a club every year. Jeff, are there any questions on the duties of the sponsors and mentors?
No, there were no discussions of that, but there were no questions about it so far. But there was some discussion about mentors. When does the mentor's job end, and when does the sponsors end and mentors begin? I think ultimately there's this general concept that it would be good for sponsors to stick around a little while and keep the club, have some continuity of support, and for mentors to get involved with the club before they actually charter. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I can comment on that. I think that like I said, a chartering club can have 2 sponsors and 2 mentors. So there's 4 roles there that can be filled. It's important that there be a continuity and a transition between the sponsors and the mentors. And typically it is more of a collaborative effort, and all 4 people are involved simultaneously. And part of that has to do with the whole application process and how the appointments are made, which just happens to be the next slide that I have. On the first chartering form, the application to organize, which is the one that can be sent in ahead of time with the initial $125 payment, and so the club can get their club number and activate their website. And it also provides them with a lot of material that can, and it gives the new members a sense of ownership in the process. And when they have a vested ownership in the process, they have a better reason to keep the building going and to get it to charter strength as soon as possible. But on that form is where the 2 sponsors' names show up and where the 2 mentors' names show up. And there's also room to have up to 2 sponsoring clubs named on that document also. But if for some reason, and I've seen this happen with clubs, especially corporate clubs, is that they get their hands on these charter documents and they're so anxious to start a club, they send it in and they don't have any of these names filled in. Or they have maybe one or two names on there, but they don't understand the new club, especially if it's in a corporate and a kind of a sheltered environment, doesn't understand the importance and the roles that these people play. So there is another way that appointments can be made, in that the district director or the club growth director can contact TI directly and make appointments. It's a lot easier to make an appointment where there is a blank rather than to correct and remove one person who was incorrectly appointed and appoint someone else who's going to be beneficial to the club. So as a sponsor, in particular, where the sponsors are supposed to help with the chartering paperwork, it's important that they know and they identify who the people are for the sponsors and mentors when that form initially goes in.
Hey, Tom, that leads to a question that Ann and Shane were discussing. What happens when, the sponsors have done their job, they've helped the club charter, turn in the paperwork, and hand the club over to the care of mentors who don't show up?
Well, that's a difficult question. That's one where it's really hard to get a new club up and going and started on the right foot if once the club charters, the mentors aren't there to help, or in the case of corporate clubs, sometimes the mentors don't have the access they need to fulfill their roles. But that kind of gets into how credit is received. For sponsors to receive credit when the club charters, the sponsor will get what's called the Get Credit form. TI will send them and say, okay, the club is chartered, you are a named sponsor on this club. Here is this letter denoting that fact, but it needs the signature of the club president in order for it to be official. So once the club officer signs, then you can send it in and get credit. And the same thing goes with the mentors, but it happens 6 months later. Now, if you're named a mentor and 6 months go by and you haven't been to the club, you get this form. You're gonna go try and get the club officer to sign off on the form so that you can receive credit, and they're gonna say, "Who are you? I've never seen you before." So if the motivation is to get the credit towards the Advanced Leader Silver or the Pathways DTM, I mean they better show up, and the club officers have to know that they've been there to guide them and help them along the way, or the club officer does not have to sign off on that form if they don't feel like they've put in the work to be the mentor. So I would say that the sponsors that get it to Charter Strength will receive credit, because I think it's pretty obvious when a sponsor has been involved in building the club up and getting it to Charter Strength. It's receiving credit for mentorship after the club is already chartered, that is a little bit of a sticky point, I think.
Yeah, it seems like
if they're not doing their job.
Right, there's no good way to check it, especially if the club officers aren't aware that they cannot sign the form.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a question from Anne, a slightly different question.
Okay.
Do you want to continue this and move on?
Just let me say that. Well, that's all I have for slides. I'm on the questions and answers now.
Okay.
And it's 9:15 here in the Eastern time zone, 9:45 in the Canadian side. But at this point, let's open it up and work on all the questions that have come up.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll continue with the question you were just talking about, so mentors that are not performing, clubs don't know any better, and so they sign them off. Is there any thought on how well, I don't know, this is probably more of a leadership question. How can we address that issue and make sure that clubs know to make sure that they're getting the correct service from the mentors?
Well, I think it's part of the club building process should be letting the clubs know what the district infrastructure is that is there to support them. And that if they don't feel like they're getting the support, they should know how to contact the district officers to engage and get more support from them.
And you know what,
I think that's the way that, yes.
Yeah, that's perfect, because I think that leads into the answer for Anne's next question, that she was told that chartering or new clubs should pay the $125 fee to apply even when they don't have the full membership. That the sponsors want to wait, but they're told to do that for Visionary Club anyways.
What I have done in the clubs that I've built is I've always had a sponsoring club so that there was a bank account that could be used to collect the money. But as the money was getting collected, I've said, when we get to 10 paid members, halfway to charter strength, when we get to 10 paid members, I want to send $125 in, which means that those 10 members have put $12.50 out of their, usually it's, 45, 65, it's somewhere around $75, unless there's a cost for renting the meeting rooms. It probably costs a new member $75 to charter into a new club. So out of that $75, you're putting $12.50 at risk. If the club fails, you will get the other $62 back, but you will lose the $12.50.
That seems completely reasonable,
Tom. Now they have a skin in the game, and they've got a reason to be motivated to build that club so that they don't lose part of their investment in it.
And you know what else they have?
And it also gets the material, it gets them all the timing cards, the gavel, all these little incidences of ownership.
Right.
It gives them something tangible that they can see.
And it gives them club leadership manuals that tell them about what the role of the sponsor and mentor is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. So yeah, there's quite a bit of chat on the chat boxes, Tom. So Rhonda says that we should educate new clubs on what the role of sponsors and mentors are. And that's why I was very, very happy to hear your comment about, once you've got 10 members, send in the money and get all the manuals, because that is exactly how they start to learn about those things. And that's also something that I think as the district leadership we can take on and make sure that clubs that are forming know what to expect. Angela says that one way to ensure success is to get, I guess, having a special TLI for new club officers. I guess it's basically just a mini TLI just for that club between the time that you demo and charter. So sometime around when you have those 10 first members, you have an idea who the officers will be. That seems like a great idea. Do you know of any clubs that have done that?
Well, like I said in the timeline, it sometimes takes 4 months, 6 months, or longer for the club to build up the charter strength. And if a TLI comes along in that time frame, I strongly encourage the members from the new club, especially the ones that look like they are going to be taking on the officer and leadership positions in the club. I encourage them to attend the TLIs because the TLIs are very motivating events, and it'll re-energize them to finish the club building process. So I encourage that. I think that I don't see anything wrong with having kind of a mini TLI to go over the club officer roles. That may be something that would be suitable for a sponsoring club to help with. Have the officers from a sponsoring club come in, and maybe each one of them does a one-on-one with the new club's officers.
Okay, well, very good. Thank you, Tom. I think you covered pretty much all of those answers. It seems several folks in the chat have said that 10 members is roughly the point in which the payment should be put in and the club should go forth and do the official chartering. Or not the chartering, I guess that's provisionary. What do they call that? Provisionary club or something like that? Provisional club?
Perspective club, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, Anne apparently is having an acute problem. She's having a specific issue where she's lost a lot of the folks that were the sponsors, the folks that had signed up to help, the seasoned Toastmasters that had signed up to help. I'm actually a little bit disturbed that she says she lost the district and division help because we're here. I don't, anyways. Maybe Anne can unmute herself and tell us a little bit about her situation and get past this. Anne, note we're down again at the last 2 minutes of this, so maybe you have something quickly we can get through.
Really, we need help. Tom, if you can contact myself, I'd appreciate it. We lost our sponsors, our mentors. We put new ones in. They're gone as well. We lost our sponsor club. We lost seasoned Toastmasters that were helping us because they say it's taking too long. And our division people have kind of gave us an ultimatum, so we're getting no help, and we're struggling to get people.
I feel like this is the wrong forum to have this discussion, so we should probably take this offline, and maybe Anne, you and Tom and Shane can talk about the situation, and then because this is not just a let's get ideas together to rally the troops.
This is a major problem.
This seems like a
Okay.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's Shane here. I agree. Let's take this issue offline. Maybe set up a conference call between the three of us in the next week or two.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out
get my co-sponsor.
Yeah, the primary message here is if you feel like you're stuck and you're alone, which, Anne, I feel like you're describing, you're not alone. We've got a whole team of folks. Tom is here to help. Shane is here to help, and they will help. So
that's why I was so glad to see this come up today, this week.
Okay, well, very good. We're glad to provide this service, but you don't have to wait for the service. You can email them and call them and say, hey, I'm stuck. I need some help. Whenever you get stuck.
All right. Thank you.
So are there any last questions for Tom before we end this call?
Well, thank you, everyone, for attending.
Yep. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Before you guys leave, I'm going to post a link for you to click on so that you can get credit for attending, and more importantly, we'll give Tom some feedback for his education and training. There you go. Please fill out this survey. And it's a brief survey, it's a few buttons and then any text comments that you have to say. Let us know how valuable this was to you, and give us any suggestions or recommendations for future training. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and thank you again, Tom, for leading us.
Okay, no problem. Just give me a shout, email, or phone if you have any questions.
Yep, and you have lots of thanks in the chat. Everyone's saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Jack. Take care. Bye.